Hello everyone, and welcome to our 7th lesson to the introduction to the wisdom of Kabala. So hopefully you've been enjoying the previous lessons and had a chance to view them, review them, listen to them, and slightly get your head around what this wisdom is really all about. And tonight we're going to touch a very, very important topic, which is called, which is our 7th lesson. It's called the approach to the study, how to actually study the wisdom of Kabala. Now, with every teaching, as you know, there is a certain methodology to learn everything. But the wisdom of Kabbalah is a spiritual method, isn't it? And spirituality in terms of the wisdom of Kabbalah is something very different to most of the other spiritual methods you've probably heard about or read about or studied. Now, in the wisdom of Kabbalah, spirituality means to attain exact qualities of the Creator, or God, or Allah. Doesn't matter what you call him. Simply because just like a child grows to be a grown-up like his parent, the Creator also wants us to grow up to be like him. So we can actually exist in his reality, just like a child can exist in the reality of grown-up people and can walk on his own legs, take care of himself, take care of his family, and have a good life. Well, that's exactly what the Creator really wants for us, just like this is what we want for our children. So it's embedded in our nature to have such a desire, because that desire comes to us from our root, and our root for all of humanity is the Creator. So today we're going to talk about how we can approach the wisdom of Kabbalah, how to study it correctly, so that we can direct ourselves towards a speedy, proper development. And you'll note that once you get to study the wisdom of Kabbalah in a more serious way, in a more dedicated way, you'll see a lot of swift changes inside of you. You'll be moving from one feeling to another, from one understanding to another quite quickly. And this is actually what the wisdom does. It really speeds up the process of a person's development that would normally take ages. All right, so let's see what we have here today. How are we going to learn the unique learning approach in the wisdom of Kabbalah? So as usual, we're going to read a few things. But before we read a few things, perhaps you wondered sometimes how a child grows. Okay? Sometimes we wonder how children never stop running around tirelessly. They go from one place to another. They're constantly running around. And what they do is actually they try to discover the whole world. This is what they do. And they do this instinctively. And as we're growing up, as we become more and more mature, we kind of like to say, you know what, you've had enough of that, so no need to go around running around. But kids have this other opinion. It's like completely opposite to grown-ups. All they do until they get to walk, they crawl around the house, all over the place. They try to discover everything. So whatever they touch, they try to taste it because they want to see what it's like. And while they're doing all that, it's all instinctive because they don't have any experience about this world. The running around they do, the crawling around they do, the trying to taste everything they can get their hands on is completely and utterly instinctive. But in nature there is such a force. Now this force in nature is actually also called the Creator or God, Allah. Doesn't matter what, everything is determined by one force, that creating force which we call the Creator. Now the Creator by nature embeds inside of us this force to discover things when we're young, when we're little kids. And it's very important that we do that, because otherwise we'd never have a desire to get to know the world. So what we need to learn from babies, you might be asking, okay, why is he talking about babies all of a sudden? All right, well, there's a reason, because the way to study the wisdom of Kabbalah is exactly like how a baby studies this world. He or she is constantly seeking, searching, wanting to discover, find out something. Well, in the wisdom of Kabbalah, that's how we need to be as well. So we need to learn how to be constantly on the lookout for something new, a new sensation, a new thought, a new experience that's new to us on our path. I'm not talking about our worldly experiences. I mean, We can talk about worldly experiences. They belong to this world. We don't have to talk about spirituality for that. Spirituality means the sensations that I'm going through as I discover myself more and more when I'm trying to get to this point of connection with somebody else. And I'm trying to strengthen that connection. And I'm focusing on that because the whole of reality is actually felt in between two forces, like plus and minus. It's not in the plus, it's not in the minus. It's what happens between those two things. So our whole reality is perceived in that way. If we were to, for example, be the only person on the planet, all right, let's say that we were the only human being on the planet, which doesn't sound like a bad idea actually. However, though, we would never ever develop from more than what we are, because we'd never actually feel the sensations that are between people which allow us to grow and to get new impressions. So this unique study in the wisdom of Kabbalah has to be not from our intellect, but from the new feelings that we get from the study. Now, this doesn't mean that we're, going to throw our brain away, or we're going to make something out of ourselves completely stupid. Of course not. We're going to utilize our intellect and our brain to the max that we can. That's for sure. However, to move forward, to really understand the things that we're going through, we need to have a feeling first, a sensation. And this is why babies run around trying to feel everything. Because without feeling it, they can never get their heads around what this really is. And because they don't understand the words we tell them, like this is a table, I don't know, this is a pen, this is a TV, this is a carpet or whatever, they don't understand these things. They need to touch it, smell it, feel it, taste it, see it, bang their heads on it, okay? And then they discover what that is. You see, the stronger the intellect depends on the stronger the sensation. So the richer feelings and sensations I have, the smarter I become. So the wisdom of Kabbalah says you don't have to be, you don't have to nullify your brain. You just have to bring a new approach to learning. And that approach to learning is through sensing, which is actually what we are. Humans are sensing, feeling creatures. Our intellect actually develops because we feel things, we sense things, we experience things in our emotions and sensations and feelings, and then we bring some meaning to it. And that meaning from sensational experiences is called wisdom. And wise is he who has experience. Therefore, the older we get, the wiser we get, because we lived more, we saw more, we did more, right? So that's what the whole wisdom is about. So instead of trying to grasp this with our minds, we need to start opening up some kind of a sensation, a feeling between creatures. And this is very, very important, because if we don't feel, our study in the wisdom of Kabbalah will be an intellectual process. An intellectual process is something like trying to learn how to swim from a book. That's not going to happen. You can probably describe how to swim from a book better than a swimmer, but you'll never learn how to swim from a book unless you dive in. You've got to dive in, feel the water, see how it's like, and then start reading the book so you can apply what the book is saying from within the sensation of being in the water. And this is exactly how it is, because spirituality is like an ocean of sensations, an ocean of feelings. And if I don't get into those feelings and sensations, I'm never really going to get anything out of it. It'll just be an intellectual process. It won't be a sensational, spiritual feeling experience. And the whole idea of spirituality is to develop a sensation, a feeling that can perceive the Creator while living in this world. Contrary to religions, the wisdom of Kabbalah says when you die, nothing's going to really happen, because the reason for this world is that everything that's supposed to happen should actually be happening while we're here. Otherwise, we're deleting this world completely. There's no point of having this world if nothing is going to happen here. So the feeling of spirituality, the feeling of the Creator must happen while we're living in this world. So let's see what the Kabbalists say, and we shall move forward after that. So as long as we've got our heads around this, and then we can now move into further about how we develop this feeling in the study. So let's see what they say. In Kabbalah for the Student, page 27, in the article, The Essence of the Wisdom of Kabbalah, this is what it says. The language of branches, though extremely suitable for its task for developing into the studies of this wisdom, more than other languages, is only so if the listener is wise in his own right, meaning that he knows and understands the way the branches relate to their roots. It is because all these relations are not at all clear when looking from the lower upwards. In other words, it is impossible to find any deduction or semblance in the upper roots by observing the lower branches. So in our previous lessons, we talked about root and branch, didn't we? And we said it's impossible for us to understand the higher level. Well, it's impossible for us to understand ourselves, actually, without understanding a higher level. And this is quite easy to really understand, simply because our whole reality, right, is like a pyramid. We have humans. Oops, let's do this a bit more tidier. Let's do this. We have the still level. We have the vegetative level. We have the animal level. And we have the human level. Actually, this is not that rated. This is like how it should be. Wait a second. This is the still level. That's the vegetative. That's the animate. And that's the human. And on top of that, there's spiritual. Okay? So right on top here, we have the spiritual level. All right? This is the pinnacle of human development, is right up here. And below there is the still, the vegetative, the animate, human, as in the speaking level, and here is spiritual. Okay? Spiritual. Now, we in humanity, let's say that's me, okay? When I'm looking at my life, I'm thinking, wow, why are we living? Okay, or why do these things happen? Okay, in humanity, what's our biggest question? Why me? Okay, that's the biggest question of humanity, is why me? I've got a really, really simple answer to that. Why not? Okay, since anything can happen to anyone, we always feel we're a little special, but we can't really understand ourselves from our level. We can understand the animate level. Okay, we understand the animate level. We're good with biology. We understand animals. We understand how human body works. We get our heads around this. Why? Because our body is an animate level of existence. So our human intellect, which is a higher level than the animals, understands. We study it and we understand what it's all about. We can also understand the vegetative level. Okay, such as botany. We understand how plants live, how they grow, how they die, what their process is, everything. We understand them. We can actually make, hybrid fruits and vegetables. Why? Because we understand about them. And because we understand, we can play around with them. And we also understand the still level, like physics, chemistry. So we understand what's going on with the still level, and this is why we can use the laws of physics, to make buildings, to fly, to do vehicles. Why? Because these are just laws of nature at the still level. So we can understand all these things because they are below our level of existence, which is humanity. But when it comes to human psychology, well, 8 billion of us have different faces. So all of us actually have a different psychology. So what good psychiatry possibly achieve when you have 8 billion different people? Nothing. That's why we can't really call it a science, because it's not consistent, because everybody's different. And in order to understand humanity and the psychology of humanity, we need to actually attain spirituality. Because only from spirituality can we understand ourselves. That's how it works. That's how it works in our life as well. So if you think about it, until we understand the roots, until we understand this phase here, we are never going to understand the branches, which is this world. So in this little text here, in one paragraph, Baal HaSalam is saying, listen, dude, if you want to understand the meaning of your life, why everything is happening to you. Okay, this is what the wisdom of Kabbalah answers, actually. The wisdom of Kabbalah can actually answer every question you have about everything that ever happened to you and why it happened to you. All you have to do is get up here, because then you can see from the reasons, you can see the consequences. Then you can develop an understanding. And that's the beauty about the wisdom of Kabbalah. So without understanding the roots, the reasons, all of us here are simply wasting time trying to figure out what our lives are all about, because we just don't adhere to the simple rule. You can never understand yourself from your level. We don't know what it's like to be 10 years old until we finish our 10th age. Until then, it's just a fantasy. It's not real because I haven't done it. Until I become a parent, I don't know what my parents are feeling. I don't know why they behaved in such a way, why they were cross at me at certain moments, why they loved me and they smiled at me sometimes, and sometimes they gave me a hard time. We don't understand these things until we become parents. And same here in spirituality. We can't understand our life here unless we begin to see life from the eyes of the Creator, from our spiritual state, which is in His place as well, in His layer of existence, in His realm, in His reality. And therefore, we can begin to understand afterwards everything that happens to our life. And that's the beauty about the wisdom of Kabbalah. It is absolutely charming.
We got a question that popped up.
Oh, go for it.
Will the wisdom help me change or alter my life?
Well, absolutely. That's what knowledge does. That's what growing up does. You begin to do things differently because you have a better understanding of life. First of all, what did we learn in the wisdom of Kabbalah? Well, we said, for example, the most important principle in life, what is that? We're all a desire to receive pleasure, right? Who asked the question?
I was from a guy named Anthony.
Anthony asked this question, okay. So we're a desire to receive pleasure. And our first rule in Kabbalah is, well, listen, if I have a desire and I fulfill this desire with pleasure or filling or satisfaction, what happens? The desire and the satisfaction, they cancel each other out. So now I feel like I have to chase another desire to get some other pleasure. So if I understand already that the desire and the pleasure cancel each other out, I can make a much better calculation. Because first of all, I can say to myself, wait a minute, if I'm going to run after something, it better be worthwhile because I'm spending my life on it. I don't want to waste my time and life running after silly things. just by knowing this rule alone. And if you ever, never look at a Kabbalah book again, if you just leave this study with this understanding, you'll already start thinking differently about what you're going after in your life. Because you'll see that a lot of things in your life that you're chasing don't add up to anything except a waste of your life. So you already become wiser. And that's lesson 1. Okay? Imagine the things we're going to be learning as we go forward. Imagine how we're going to be able to grasp how to really juggle around everything that happens to us in this life. All the stress, all the dilemmas, the problems that humanity is going through, we'll be able to understand why we're going through them. Wouldn't it be much better if I understood why things were happening to me and what I could do about them? Because that's the wisdom of Kabbalah. The wisdom of Kabbalah is a life science. It is about discovering everything in life and every reason for everything that happens behind this life. Certainly, it'll give you a great ability to juggle things, to move around life, and to actually flow with this thing called the rhythm of life. Now then, let's see what else are they saying. The lower is studied from the upper. Okay, so let's get back to this drawing here. Okay, so the lower, this is, when it says the lower, this means our life, okay, is the lower, is studied from the higher. And this is the higher. So in order for us to study this world, we've got to look at this life from here. In other words, like this, like I drew here. Okay? That's got to be how we look at things. Thus, one must first attain the upper roots. So first and foremost, we have to get spiritual in order to understand what's happening in our life here. And once he has thoroughly attained the upper roots with his own mind, he may examine the tangible branches in this world and know how each branch relates to its root in the upper world, in all its orders, in quantity and quality. Wow, that's already everything. Imagine if we were here, then we begin to see everything that's happening to us in our life. For example, I don't know, if I have a good day, if I have a bad day, if I have a, I don't know, anything from traffic to a problem at work to anything that will make me happy, my kids, my family, my wife, everything that influences me, I'll be able to understand everything because I understand the root behind everything. I understand the reason behind everything. How easy would my life be? It would be just easy. And that's exactly what the Creator wants, because life really shouldn't be difficult, should it? And in fact, the purpose of life, in case you don't know, which we mentioned before, is to have creatures that are fulfilled. So the Creator actually wants to make us happy. That's the purpose of life. So by understanding the Creator, it's like a child understanding his or her father and mother, and he or she understands what her or his parents want, and then he or she does it. And all of a sudden the parents are really happy. They buy the kid a bicycle and everything is like great because everybody understands each other, and you know the child is doing great. The parents are really happy, so they want to reward the child and they give it presents and everything, and it's a honky-dory situation. Wonderful. And this is exactly how our relationship in this world should be. If we manage to get our relationship right in accordance with the laws of nature, which are also the nature of the Creator, which is bestowal and love, actually. When was the last time you felt great? I'll tell you when. When you had a really good time with somebody you cared about, with a friend, with family, with your loved ones. That's when we're really happy. We're not constantly happy with material things. You know, if let's say I bought a nice car, I'm over it in a few weeks. I'm already used to driving it. I'm just, you know, what else can I do with the car? It's a piece of metal. It doesn't give me anything back. But if you ask someone when was the last time they really had fun and pleasure and they felt happy, it's always in a social event. Social event, just imagine that, between people. So for us to have that happiness and fulfillment, we have to discover what actually real connection is between people according to the nature of the Creator, so we can attain that perfection. And in order to discover that, we need to discover the roots, which is actually the same as discovering the Creator while living in this world. Isn't that a bonus, Anthony?
It is a plus, definitely. So we have another question here, and this question is a good one. It says, what is the light Kabbalists are talking about, and how... Sorry about that. So the question that we have here is, what is the light that Kabbalists are talking about, and how can a Kabbalah student draw this light?
Well, that's very good. So we spoke about this in our previous lesson a little bit when we studied the wisdom of Kabbalah, how we attract this light, okay? And you'll also remember that I talked about, okay? I talked about how babies run around all day, okay? They run around all day, and from experience, from getting to know things, they become wiser, right? It's just exactly how we grow up. So this is exactly how the wisdom of Kabbalah works. This is why we can really take good examples from babies. Now, let's read a little bit more about how that works so that we can direct ourselves properly. Now then, let's see. First of all, why do we need to study the wisdom of Kabbalah? All right. Although I've said quite a few things about it, I really want to relate to all the explanations I did just now into what the text is talking about. So, continuing with Introduction to the Study of the 10 Sefirot from Baal HaSulam, again in the same book, Kabbalah for the Student, on page 373, Baal HaSulam writes as such: why did the Kabbalists obligate each person to study the wisdom of Kabbalah? There is a great thing in it, worthy of being publicized. There's a wonderful, invaluable remedy to those who engage in the wisdom of Kabbalah, although they do not understand what they're learning. Through the yearning and the great desire to understand what they're learning, they awaken upon themselves the light that surrounds their soul. Okay, so that's the answer to your question. While we study the wisdom of Kabbalah, we attract something that's called a surrounding light. Now that might sound a little mystical, but it isn't really once you get our head around it. So let's say there is, who asked the question, do we know?
Yes.
Ilahe. Okay, so Ilahe that sounds like a lady's name. Okay, so there we go. So let's give her some long hair. There we go. A nice skirt on her. Okay, so there's Ilahe. Okay, and she's rather happy with a dot in the heart who came to study the wisdom of Kabbalah. Okay, so that's lovely. Okay, you can see I'm a bit of a Picasso man myself.
She's doing really well. That's a good picture.
Okay, great. Now, what does Ilahe have to do? Now, she has a dot in the heart. What does that mean? It means that I want to discover the meaning of my life. I have this desire to seek why I'm living. Why is this whole creation created? And what are we supposed to do here? Really? Because we're born, we have a few years in this place, and then we just, end up gone. Okay, and nobody really knows where we go. Some religious people say, or some religions, well, there's 4,500 of them, they say after we die something's going to happen. Well, I don't know if you guys want to wait till you die, but Kabbalists say definitely don't wait till you die, because you should get this thing done here, and dying is not a solution. Okay? So what we need to do in order to attain the goal while we're living here is to study the wisdom of Kabbalah. Now, the Kabbalistic books are very special. Okay, they're very special because although when we read them and study them, we might think they're talking about this world, but they're not. They're actually talking about the reality of the Creator. So the Creator's reality. You see, Kabbalists in their books, they don't have to talk about this world. Why talk about something I can already see? What are they going to tell me about the sunset or the moon or the planet when I can already see them? I can probably do a better description than they're doing. However, they don't want to talk to me about this world. They want to talk to me about spirituality, our connection with the Creator. But unfortunately, due to lack of choice, they're using words from this world. However, though, when the intention of the book is directed towards the Creator, and a person like you is studying a book that's describing the creation, describing the Creator and His relationship to us, what happens is, from there, we get something called feedback. That feedback is sometimes called enlightenment. Enlightenment. Now, in life, sometimes we study something and we don't understand what we're studying, right? Okay, I'm sure you had those moments. We all have. But then all of a sudden, one day, you say, that's what it was. I got it now. Okay, how do you think that happened? All of a sudden, you read the book, you didn't understand anything about it, and all of a sudden, it just clicked.
You mean like the light switch turned on?
Exactly. And that's what actually it is. Now, what happens is when a student of Kabbalah is studying, is little by little, through the yearning, as it says here, because we want to study from a desire. We don't want to study intellectually because we forget things, but emotions, experiences are never forgotten. Even if you had an experience when you were very, very young, that sticks with you. It's like a photographic thing in your mind. You lived something, you had a serious feeling from it, and you never forget it. But intellectual stuff, imagine all those things, all the books and the things we learned in high school, all those things they taught us, drama and I don't know, history and geography. I mean, how many things do you remember? I don't remember anything. Because we generally forget things that are intellectual. And it's just fading away. But what we do not forget is the emotion. So by studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, we're studying our emotions with the interactions between the Creator and us. So we can get rid of this actually. And because we're studying that, we're getting feedback. Now this feedback is a slow process. Just like a baby doesn't get born and starts walking and running around the next day, okay, until he or she starts crawling, it's a good several months. Until he or she starts to stand up, it's a good at least 6, 7, 8 months, you know. Until then, they're all crawling, okay. So just like that, in the wisdom of Kabbalah as well, we study. But as we study, we attract, and we continuously attract, this thing called the light. And we attract it, I'll tell you how, we attract it drop by drop. So a person who's studying the wisdom of Kabbalah is, well, that wasn't very good, was it? Oh no. Sorry about that, guys. Oh dear me. There we go. All right. So what happens is that person, which is you, Ilahe, okay, you're constantly, drop by drop, getting light until it becomes an accumulation. Okay? This accumulates. Now, on the one hand, all your effort accumulates, just like in this life. Whenever we want to do something, we put effort and it's never gone to waste. Your desire for spirituality is increasing through your effort, because your effort is growing your desire for spirituality. Growing desire for spirituality. And as you grow this desire for spirituality, this vessel starts to get drops of light here and there, here and there. And all of a sudden, you begin to have these aha moments. And those aha moments accumulate until they become enough to reveal the first degree of spirituality. And then, bang, you reveal spirituality just like a baby is born and reveals this reality. You become a baby in spirituality. You actually give your birth there yourself by you studying. And that is attracting the light. You see, this is why they recommend us to study with a desire, study with passion. I want this thing to happen. Okay, I need this thing to happen. Only people who have a big passion, a desire for things, become successful in life. Doesn't that surprise you? Why? It's not about how smart you are in life. It's about how much desire you have in life. Because the more desire you have, the more successful you'll be. That's a law of nature. Out there in the corporeal world, they call it law of attraction. All of a sudden, they got these books called The Secret and this and that. No. The law of attraction isn't that. The force of the desire brings things closer to you. So as you study the wisdom of Kabbalah, you grow this desire for spirituality, this passion for it. Your eyes don't see anything else, and you don't want to see anything else. You want to see the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
So help you.
Exactly, and this is exactly so help you God. He does, and that's called the light. Isn't that great?
Works out well.
Exactly. So for us to study the wisdom of Kabbalah, what we have to do is first of all have a dot in the heart, study together the books, the sources, and as we study the sources who are describing to us spirituality, we begin to get forces from that reality. This is not far-fetched, guys. I mean, getting forces from spirituality may sound a little airy-fairy, but think about it. A baby is getting forces from this world. It has this driving force that wants to discover this world. And this desire to discover this world allows him to grow and discover this world. This is how scientists also discover this world. Why? Because they have a desire to find out. And if we have the same kind of a desire to discover spirituality, to discover what it means to be in this realm of bestowal, of perfection, of harmony, in balance with laws of nature, then we can attract that state to us because we desire that state. That's called the wisdom of Kabbalah. So, attainment, in other words, can only happen if we, in this world, with our dot in the heart, create an environment that will influence us so that we will want to develop spiritually. Okay, so if we have an environment that's always influencing us, helping us out, it's like helping kids out. They have friends to help them out. They've got family to help them out, parents, uncles, aunts, cousins, everyone. Everybody's helping kids, even strangers on the street. When they see a kid, they need something, they help them out, right? So the same here. If we have this environment, and in this environment we're studying the upper reality, which is spirituality. And spirituality is the Creator's attributes. Creator's attributes. Okay? Then we can begin to discover what our nature really is and try to match ourselves to what the books are talking about, so we can come to some kind of a congruence between us and the Creator, some kind of a reconciliation, some kind of a match where we have this connection happening. And that's the wisdom of Kabbalah in a nutshell, obviously. It is a deep science, it is a very, very deep wisdom, but in a nutshell, if we study the wisdom of Kabbalah with the authentic sources, with a nice group of friends with us who will help us along the way, and we try to actually apply the things that we're learning, and then what we can do is really grow like children who are trying to apply the things they're learning in order to grow. Just like attaining a profession. If I want to be a carpenter, I really want to get to know the wood, all the tools, which tools to use for what kind of wood, and to be a really master of that material. And spirituality is actually becoming a master of our nature, this desire to receive. And then if I'm a master of this desire to receive, I can know what to do with it, so I can mold it, with the help of the Creator, of course, towards bestowal, because I have to learn bestowal from who is bestowing, which is the Creator. This is why it is utmost important that for a person to first attain spirituality, to first attain the roots, the cause of everything, before understanding what's happening to him or herself in this world. Right, then, any other questions? Are we all good?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right, I'm glad we're moving forward. This seventh lesson is quite important, and sometimes we have, a bit of a problem trying to get our head around this thing. What does it mean to attract light? What is the light? What does it mean to study authentic Kabbalah sources? How do I do this? All of this is actually going to settle down inside of us as we move forward in the course. As you know, this semester is a 20-lecture course, and we're going to take everything step by step. And I'm sure the reason we're keeping it at a longer pace is because I want the group of people who are studying with us to experience some of the sensations that we talked about in these lessons as we progress. So until we get to the second semester, I do want to create some kind of an environment where you go through certain feelings and you can say, oh wow, we talked about this in the lesson, this was mentioned in the lesson, and now I'm going through this, and that was in the lesson. So I want to kind of start to take the students who are listening, who are watching, and who want to study seriously through at least these little steps where they can begin to come to the lesson with some kind of a sensation that, wow, I lived actually what we were learning. And I want to give that kind of an experience before we move to the second semester and then to the third semester afterwards, which are equally very, very important in our development. So hopefully you'll be able to watch these lessons over and over again. This is why they're all placed on YouTube, so you can watch them as much as you like to really get an understanding of it. And if you have any questions, you can always email your questions to us. So don't forget to email your questions. Send us an email and we'll answer them in the lesson always. And also, if you have live questions, you can also ask them live. This wisdom actually has an answer to everything, surprisingly enough. And it was quite a bit of a shock to me too when I first started studying, because I just said there's not one question that hasn't received an answer. So I felt really obliged to study this because it just answered everything, and it really made sense, and even more sense as I studied it even more. So I really urge and encourage all of you to really take the time for your spiritual development, because in the 21st century, most of humanity has everything. And what we've discovered is through having everything that we feel like we don't have anything. Life just goes by day after day. We're going to work, we come home, maybe you have a few hobbies, but at the end of the day, life is just going by. And we're not really adding much more sensations to the sensations that we already have in life. We want to repeat the things that gave us pleasure before so that we can, somehow try to maintain our happiness. And even that's not working either. And now in the 21st century, we've come to such a state with humanity that, the amount of depression that there is in society, the amount of desire to just not do anything, to be just fed up with life, this desire that we don't want to do anything, go out anywhere even. A lot of people, they just don't want to go out anymore. And this is a natural phenomenon because we just don't feel like we're going to be fulfilled from anything. And that's an accumulation of human experience through thousands of years, through generations that humanity has been going through. We've come to an understanding in our younger generation that we just don't have anything to get pleasure from. So why should I actually do anything? Why should I go out? Why should I work? Why should I do anything really? Because at the end of the day, I just don't see like there's going to be a pleasure from this. So this common understanding for humanity is very essential, and it needs to be reconciled with the purpose of our creation, because the whole suffering, at a psychological level as well, I'm not talking about suffering because we're hungry or we lack something. I'm talking about this acute qualitative suffering that we feel as humanity, that we just don't feel like there's anything to be happy from. So we just try to make the best of things and our days go by. So it's very, very important for all students to understand that we have an amazing meaning to life, and that we're supposed to actually be, all of us, 8 billion of us, surprisingly enough, we're all of us together supposed to make one great perfection, and that there's a great plan behind this reality that wants to elevate us to an amazing level of consciousness. Just like this, just like a banana, right? I don't know if you guys watched it, but when they cut a banana from the tree, it's all green, and you can't really eat that. Okay, it's just not going to taste right. You're going to get a really bad stomach. But what happens is that banana goes through a process, doesn't it? And then at the end of that process, it becomes nice and yellow. It becomes a little mushy. And when you eat it, it's like happiness food. Okay, banana for me has always been happiness food. So that's why I'm giving it as an example. But if you think about it, it's gone through this process to become something really amazing. And humanity is like that too. We're going through this phase like a fruit on a tree. And at the end of that development, we're going to be something really great. And I think for anyone who's asking about the meaning of life, who's asking about why we're living, this wisdom is definitely worthwhile to study, so that just like in this lesson I explained, it'll give you this opportunity to really attract this wisdom upon yourself and to get these new feelings and sensations that you hadn't gone through before, and that which you can actually answer the main questions of your life. And to resolve all those problems and issues is actually a great relief for an individual. Because to understand, because we're not really suffering from an event, we're really suffering from this question of why this happened to me. It's not about what happened, it's about why it happened. And that's the biggest question mark on the planet. So hopefully you'll stick around with us throughout these lessons, and hopefully we'll probably get to see you, hopefully, in one of our congresses or conferences, or in one of the groups that study around the world. And we have many friends who study all around the world. So hopefully we'll see you with one of the friends, the groups or conferences, congresses, whatever. And we'll have a great opportunity to meet each other and to connect. And you will see that this human connection is actually the answer to all our negative situations. And that positive connection really covers all the minuses, all the negative things in our lives. And any questions with that?
I think we're good. I just want to add, if you have any questions, as Mutlu said, please write into us. That email is going to be Africa@Kabala.academy.
Let's write that here.
That's Africa@Kabala.academy. You can write into us there, and we'll make sure that we get you the answers.
Africa@Kabala.academy. There we go. All right, so good. Academy is with a single C, I'm sorry. Academy. All right, there we go. Africa@Kabala.academy. You'll be happy to know, if you're interested in the wisdom of Kabbalah, that our lessons are now being translated to many languages, and there are, groups and people who study all around the world. So if you do feel like, I don't know, if you're from India, Japan, I don't know, wherever on the planet, from here to Timbuktu, I don't know, Australia, China, we have friends all over the world, Russia, America, Europe, everywhere, North America, South America, even in Alaska, we've got friends who study with us. So if you're interested, do write to us, because there's a group pretty much everywhere in the world, and they'll be more than happy to meet you. They'll be more than happy to put you, through this process of development with us. So take care of yourselves. This is the end of the lesson for today, and hopefully we'll meet you again in our next lesson, where we'll be going through, let's see what topic we'll be going through next time.
Lesson number 8.
Lesson number 8. What are the optimal Kabbalistic sources for our generation to progress spiritually in the fastest and happiest way? So there's a shortcut to everything, and looks like that's what we're going to be studying next week. Take care of yourselves. All the best. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.